Good day guys, have you ever struggled to create animated splash that fits your application purpose? Today we will be creating an electric plug animation from scratch without using any library, and this will be used in our splash scene. To start, we'll create a blank project, and within our blank project we'll add a container. It's going to show us where our plug would be. We'll set the color as red to make it visible. Then we'll have our custom paint, where we'll create a custom painter called electric plug. In the electric plug painter, we'll override the required functions. We'll set the should repaint to true. Next, let's initialize all the variables we need for the project. First, we'll set the colors. These are all the colors we'll need. Then within the paint function in our custom painter, we'll set the paint for the plug. We'll call the section just below the metal part of the plug the insulator. We'll call the rubber handle the plug handle. Next, we'll set the width and the height of the canvas. The plug padding is going to be the space from the plug to the end of the canvas. The plug height, as the name entails, is the height of the plug, and the insulator height is the height of the section just below the metallic plug. Then the plug rectangular height is going to be the rectangle under the insulator. The plug width is going to be the thickness of both the insulator and the metallic section. So we'll start with the first side of the plug. We'll use a rounded rectangle, and within it we'll create a rectangle from the left top width and height. That's what the function means. This function enables us to create a rectangle by specifying the left side, the top side, and then the width and the height of the rectangle. Set our rectangle radius to 20, and the paint is going to be the plug paint. You can see the plug has been displayed. Similarly, for the second plug, we'll have a rounded rectangle which is going to be positioned at the end. So we'll use the width minus the padding and the plug width, which is going to be fixed at the top, and we still have the same plug width and plug height. Next, we go to the insulator. That's the plastic section below the conductor. We'll use a rectangle for this. Unlike the rounded rectangle, this doesn't require a border radius. So we set the position and the width and the height along with the color. We do the same for the other insulator. I just noticed the two insulators are not of the same height. So let's go to the first plug and change the height to insulator height. Now they are both the same. For the rectangle under the insulator, at a position of 80, it is just below the insulator, and we need it to cover the whole width of the canvas, so we use the width. So we have the rectangle here. Now the head of our plug is going to have a custom part which resembles a triangle. So firstly, we create a part and move the part to the start of the shape. We're going to be starting at the position of 15 and 120, which starts just below the rectangle. Then we trace the part to the bottom. We're going to give a spacing of 20 on both sides. This is going to give it a flat edge on the end. This is to allow the wire to connect. So once we complete our parts, we can see the flat surface under the handle. You can go back to the screen and remove the color. Next, we move on to animate this. Creating a size box to fill the screen, we add our stack within the size box. We want our plug to be located at the middle of the screen. So we use a position widget and set the left and right to 0. Since this stretches the widget, we use an align widget to place it at the center. This setup allows us to fix the plug within the center of the position widget without distorting the shape of the widget. Next, we create the plug wire, and it's going to have the same color as the plug. Using the position and the align widget, we center it. Since the height of the plug is 200, we give it an offset at the top of 200, setting the left and right position to 0, and with the help of our align widget, we center the wire to the middle of the screen. To animate this screen, we add a single ticker provider state mixing. And within our init states, we add our animation controller. We set a duration of 5 seconds. The first animation we'll be working on is a slide animation, which moves the plug from the bottom of the screen to the top. For each of these animations, I'll be using a TweenSequence. This allows us to create more than one animation flow with the same animation controller. For this slide animation, we expect the plug to move from outside of the screen to the top of the screen and then stay at the top for a couple of seconds. So our animation is going to be split into a total weight of 100. For the first 60% of the time, it moves from outside of the screen to the top of the screen. Then for the last 40%, it waits. To update our widgets whenever this animation changes, we wrap our widgets in the animated builder and add the animation controller to move our plug from outside the screen to the top of the screen. On both the plug and the plug wire, we add the animation value and multiply it by the height. This is set to the top of the position widget. To run this animation, in the init state, we add controller.forward. This is placed in the widget binding. This is to allow the screen to load completely before we start the animation. Once we restart it, now we see our animation. The next animation we'll work on is the background color. We'll create a color animation. And using a TweenSequence, we want the color to remain the same for the first 60% of the animation. Then for the next 10%, we want it to animate from gray to yellow and then stay in yellow until the end of the animation. This makes the background light up once the plug reaches the end of its animation. Let's create a socket where our plug will enter. This is just going to be a white container with a height of 8. To make the socket cover the ends of the plug, we'll move it to the last item in the stack widget. So now it feels as though the plug is inside the socket. For our next animation, we'll add a sliding text. For the next animation, we'll create a sliding text. As usual, we'll add the TweenSequence in the init state. This text would start at the bottom of the screen, then move to halfway points of the containing widgets. Within the body, we'll create the text. You can replace this text with a company brand or logo if you are making use of this code. I'll add a color and a background to this text to make it more visible. Next, on the bottom, let's add the text slide animation value to see the animation in motion. We have to restart the application to see this update. Finally, I would like to add a button which fades in at the end of the animation. So I'll use an opacity animation, and within the init state, we'll set the TweenSequence. We want this animation to come in last, so for the first 95% of this animation, it's going to be invisible, so the values will be 0. Then for the last 5%, it animates from 0 to 1. So let's create this button. We'll use a container to create the button. Add a color and shadow along with text. We'll wrap this widget in an opacity widget and add our opacity animation value. Again, we'll restart the app to see our update. So at this point, we have all the animation in motion. So whenever you start this application, we have this animated splash which goes off. If this video helped you in any way, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you in my subsequent videos, and thanks for watching to the end. Have a nice day.